That was my Overwatch experience because I didn't bother to boot up the game because I was too busy torturing myself with TMNT by Platinum.
Oh,
Did you play multiplayer at all?
No, I did not.
If you're gonna go back to that game,
Which
I played it.
I doubt I will.
I played it all the way. That game gets significantly better even just playing with randoms. It is seriously a lot better just playing with randoms.
Okay, so just don't even do that switch off single player.
Maybe play the first and second mission to get the gist of why the single player is not worth your time. It's a lot better with randoms. It's still probably their worst game. But it is night and day.
I'll agree that it's by far, I think, Platinum's weakest game I've ever experienced. I never played, Infinite Space, and
Infinite Space is slow but good.
Yeah, and they barely really made it. When I did search for online people and I had the PS4 version, I found no one. It was
That's
empty
odd
at the time.
because
this is in the middle of the afternoon and on launch. But when you launch your game on Overwatch Day, maybe not a lot of my people might be playing it.
Perhaps.
My free company is empty right now.
As
it
it should.
is just like
Just hang a sign on the door.
it's like Overwatch time.
But I did
It's the Overwatch spray. Just put the spray on there.
I did the first two major missions, like the Bebop one. I did the second one, and then I putzed around in the empty overworld for a little bit more, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something else. So I did, and it really sucks because if you guys remember, I was bitching and moaning about how bad I wanted this game. I wanted the trailers. I wanted to see it now, and now it's just this heaping disappointment.
You got to have the exact same pre-release reaction to two games. One was Doom, one was this.
Yeah.
And then you got the completely ass end ends of the spectrum on both.
Well, one, the single player is fantastic. Multiplayer is all right, sure. If you want to, it's not for me, but I'm sure it's good. And the other game is
Doom.
the complete. And then there's the complete opposite on the Ninja Turtles.
Well, I like the way you put it when you're like, it's like you're looking at this game, and then for a second you're like, how should I judge this? Should it be judged as a Platinum game or as a Ninja Turtles game?
Because it's like a button
movie game.
It's like a button masher beat 'em up, and it's a little bit of Platinum, but it's neither really.
I find the problem with Ninja Turtles games every time is they're hamstrung because they gotta be 4-player co-op or else
it's gotta have something.
But I'd rather it be single player and be a better game.
And you
but
just
if
switch off.
That's always what hamstrings the new Ninja Turtles games is they gotta be multiplayer.
The one that's different is TMNT on the GBA. Remember we played that? That's only single player.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible Ninja Turtle game, but people are like, but what's weird about that game is that there's all this extra space in the bottom part of the screen where a second turtle, I think there's System Link, I don't remember, but that game was like one of the best TMNT games in a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at how Transformers, just they're a team, but you switched off as you got to their chapters, so it's like that could work for Turtles too.
No, I would have really preferred had they just gone the single player route, but it's hard to say whether they were so impassioned about doing it multiplayer or whether that was maybe something they had to do,
or maybe they wanted to try something a little bit different from the usual.
Yeah, but I also think
outside of the comfort zone.
I also think fans would abjectly refuse a Turtles game that wasn't multiplayer, And
good job. You fucked yourselves,
I think that's a bummer.
Turtle fans.
Yeah.
I think
maybe that's just me, but all I'm seeing is people
you're
saying,
completely right.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I think talked about this a little bit before, but Out of the Shadows, the old XBLA PSN game was
not the new movie.
Not the new movie. It had a big single player mode that you can play in single player, and then you could have one online buddy join you. Or you have that additional arcade mode that we played where it puts all 4 turtles. That's a lot of work, admittedly.
Yeah,
but
you're making 2 different games
you're
almost.
basically making 2 different games, but Platinum works fast. Maybe the mantra was not to waste time with that stuff.
On paper, the idea of controlling a turtle like Dante and D-pad switching styles to switch turtles and go combo crazy sounds like a wacky fun idea, but if you don't have enough time, and I don't know if every damage is every damage. I don't know if every boss is a damage sponge kind of boss.
They all are. Even Karai, who's just a strong girl. She's not a giant rhino or anything.
Yeah.
She's a very strong woman, but that's all she is. She's a human.
You're just beating on her for a while, and you're like, you shouldn't be this durable.
Yeah.
Because that would be awesome if it was just Karai. Then why not, for that boss, switch more to a Platinum kind of character action style and not why not mix it up?
Yeah.
That'd actually be better. I'd rather have bullet sponges, damage sponges, then platinum boss, then back and forth.
The fact that there's no missions where you can play as solo as a turtle, like they kind of have to keep the enemy health high. Because when you have 4 good players online, bosses just wouldn't stand a chance if they had regular health. They would like vanish in a fucking instant. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the balance.
I said on
for that.
Twitter,
I don't think it's good. I don't like how they're damage sponges, but with 4 players, it's hard. Sorry, mic cut. But I don't see how they could have balanced it otherwise for 4 players without the enemies just vanishing instantly if they had, regular character action attributes,
That's why putting all your turtles into one basket into one mode, and it completely relies on this balance the entire way through is like, that's why like ultimately maybe making 2 sort of modes or 2 things like might have been the better choice, because if this one thing falls apart, like the rest of it kind of falls apart. If you're playing in single player or you're playing with players that aren't very good.
Certainly, if they would have if they would have went and made like single player missions as well, where you get to pick whichever turtle you want, that would have been, those missions would probably be just fine actually. But like they'd also like really contrast with the multiplayer objectives that usually require you to have multiple turtles. 3 turtles have to protect the other guy doing something else, or that's most of the missions.
Like Donatello just moving his hands for 30 seconds, doing something to a
he's
computer.
Fixing the bombs. Yeah.
So the quick chat that you and I had, Liam, about this game before, like we kind of were talking about the idea of Platinum continuing to make these like
these licensed
properties, exactly. And Korra and Transformers were better than this game is, apparently.
Yeah,
and,
good.
They're certainly not like on the level of the Platinum originals, but
I think Transformers gets there, like up there with Anarchy, like
with
sure.
Anarchy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fair. But what we basically looked at, we said what was different here. It was that Ninja Turtles was coinciding with a movie release date.
Yeah.
And it was timed to
theaters,
have to come out with
June 8th,
right?
I believe.
I think
So,
that and the multiplayer.
Korra
didn't
done.
have
Korra was
anything.
done
at the time that game came out. And the Prime Wars was happening as a Transformers
that was
event,
like,
but that's a year-long
Transformers
thing.
is like constantly beginning and ending. There's no start
so
and end point.
Both of those games were licensed properties that had no specific cutoff points to hit, unlike Ninja Turtles.
And that definitely seems like it had to hit the movie date. Otherwise,
so
it's a crazy coincidence.
I still find it so confusing that the other Turtles game was called Out of the Shadows to be released for the first movie, and now the second movie is called Out of the Shadows.
Let's just snatch that name. That was a good one.
But they didn't want to call it Out of the Shadows 2 because Out of the Shadows didn't get a good response.
Yeah, we had in that same conversation, we had a little "Who's on first" moment.
So stupid.
Of like Out of the Shadows. Yeah, no, Out of the Shadows. Yeah, anyway,
I remember that. Yeah,
but that's it. So it's like if they're going to continue to work with Activision, hopefully they're not getting stuck with things that have to come out on this movie's cutoff date.
I definitely think the date combined with the whoever it was who really wanted to do the multiplayer, I think that was the problem. Because I really think you could strip this game of its multiplayer and sort of redesign the levels a little bit.
I'm sure it wasn't Platinum's idea
and you'd be fine
to charge $60 for a game that you can beat in 2 hours.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure.
Like that I'm just saying that.
Actually, actually, it's funny because we saw those people saying 2 hours, but I contest that. You can't beat this game in 2 hours if you're playing on normal.
You didn't say what difficulty.
No, I played through it on normal, and you're not beating this game in 2 hours. Like,
what would you ballpark it at completion on average?
Like 4+. Like same ballpark as Korra and Transformers.
Yeah.
Shorter than Transformers. That one was a bit longer, but same ballpark as Korra. Not that it makes a huge difference between 2 and 4, but like
Korra was
I don't know, proportionally it sure does.
Though, right?
Proportionally, it's Korra was $20. Transformers was $50 or $40 on last gen. And Turtles was $60 or $50 on last gen.
And now the next movie game will be even worse and will cost $100.
Yeah.
Got to be a license people care about.
Fast and the Furious.
That Activision
I would
has.
play Fast and the Furious.
G.I. Joe versus Rambo. Now that's two licenses.
G.I. Joe Transformers.
Honestly, I would want them to do Transformers again.
Yeah.
Isn't Prime Wars like ongoing or something too? It's like phase 2 and shit.
It's a year-long event.
No, Beast Machines.
Oh, Beast Wars would be great.
That would be.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna take it.
You should take it.
I'm gonna talk about Ninja Turtles again. I'm gonna bring it right back because I did play it for I don't know, somewhere between like 5 and 6 hours. I played a bit past the end of the game just to replay like one of the early missions. It's actually like the most enjoyable mission, the first one, because the city's just fun to traverse. Unlike The tower
crawling
level
up and down the building, not the buildings, the city from street level to rooftop was cool.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. The level with Karai is like not nearly as fun, where you have to like fly between buildings and stuff. It's kind of slow and just plodding, as opposed to grinding on rails and wall running and stuff. That game, so like Transformers still, even though it was a licensed one, it still had like relatively like deep moveset, right? You could go into it and you could do a lot. Turtles is way shallower in terms of the moveset, and all the Turtles are relatively the same, except
like,
for
in
a
terms
few of
of
their abilities.
In terms of their actual combos and attacks.
They're all pretty much the same, except for a few of their abilities.
So you're not going to believe this one, guys.
I won't.
You'll never believe what happened.
I hate that stupid restaurant. Fuck.
Super Best Friends hates it.
What?
What?
Pat just wants to give out on that restaurant.
Can we stay on topic for a second?
Yeah, let's stay on topic.
I hate that guy.
What happened? Why is there a sudden jump in
Okay, remember when I kind of screamed a little bit because my power went out of my house?
You did scream.
Did it do it again?
About 3 minutes and 20 seconds into that recording,
when Liam was talking about turtles again,
the power went out again.
So that's why the jump is about.
And that's when we were like, well, we obviously cannot record at Pat's house because the goddamn power keeps going out at random.
So we're 5 hours and 15 kilometers over.
Yeah,
at
and now
Woolie's
we're in
place.
Woolie's place, and we're going to continue the podcast from here.
4 kilometers.
It's like
It's
nothing
probably
ever happened.
600 kilometers.
It's totally seamless. Totally seamless.
Do not pay attention to the podcast behind the curtain.
Totally party.
And if you were here
All
2
party.
minutes ago, you'll recall that Liam was talking about the Ninja Turtles and how its combat is much shallower than, say, everything else that Platinum's done.
So Transformers, and even in Korra, like once you got all 4 of your groups of powers, you had quite a depth to what you could do. In Ninja Turtles, there's very little in terms of that depth. But it's replaced with a huge breadth of stuff. At any time, you can fire, like, infinite projectiles.
You can use all the Turtles' special moves.
You have all their special moves, no, like, funny inputs required. You have, like, 4 solid defensive options at all times, and your regular combos, etc. But they're always available to you. There's nothing particularly complex about it. And I think that it definitely suits a more pick-up-and-play kind of play style.
True.
And I think for, like, a multiplayer game, it kind of makes sense to go for a more plain control style, but I
heard a huge butt coming when you were saying that.
But yeah, it still doesn't address the problems. It's a good design, but it doesn't fix the glaring problems, which is honestly mainly the bosses as far as I'm concerned.
You know, it's a weird thing. Korra and Transformers are franchises that also should not require a lot of input and like heavy input execution, like whatever, but they had it. And like Turtles, like, yeah, it skews younger. And like, but still I found like the parry, like the go into your shell and parry thing to be harder than Revengeance to reliably use.
The parry is not super reliable in this game. Basically, when you hold one of the shoulder buttons, you spin in your shell for a brief amount of time.
Sure.
And you can hold it until the gauge runs out.
All right.
One of the only Platinum games where you can actually just block outright. And if you get hit in that state, you like clash away and nothing happens to you. But when you release it, if something hits you when you're pulling out of your shell, you'll parry. And that timing is awfully
weird
specific.
Sounding.
If you can't trust a parry, well, who can you trust?
Well, see, what you can trust about it is as long as you don't release way too early, you'll just block the hit.
It is generous, but it's just awkward.
Yeah. But what you should try to do or rely on is it has another mechanic with a similar input window as Witch Time, where if you press the guard/dodge button right before an enemy swings.
So there's two defenses.
So it's 3 things in one button.
Yeah, it's sick. It's actually like really cool. But
dodge, or if you're holding it, block. And if you
release it, you get a
rebound,
parry.
you get parry. Okay.
So
but that's almost too much complication when compared to just the combos.
It is quite complex, but they're all kind of good for their own thing. When you do the dodge thing, what happens is you swing 180 degrees behind the enemy, like in No More Heroes when Travis slides around them. And it's that same kind of thing. And you can either just go into a combo now that the enemy is facing the other way, or right when you do it, if you press circle, you'll hop on top of their head and start beating at their head. And they'll just like be struggling to get you off so all your buddies can attack. And they get a buff to their attack when you're doing that.
With tight gameplay, one defense button could be a cool thing.
Yeah.
I could see that being interesting.
Yeah, and in the context of this game, those things make sense. Cause like you want the block, cause the hits are like, especially the bosses swing really wide and they tend to hit everyone at once. So having a block there is actually really good. The dodge / like climb on top, really works out because it lets you buff every other player and their attacks, and it also keeps them safe because they can't attack while you're on top of them. Mm-hmm. And the parry is just a parry if you think you're good. Are you good enough? You probably aren't. It's hard to time it. It's really hard to time it.
I always think this is one of those things where they're trying to satisfy basic Ninja Turtle fans that just want a pick up and play thing. Also trying to satisfy a bit of Platinum fans. Usually when you do that, you don't quite satisfy either.
I think you can validate it though. Like, pressing the button to get a dodge is fair enough, right? And then holding the button to get a guard is fair enough, right? So why not add an extra command when you release it? Because it doesn't take up your time.
I just mean in general, the general gameplay.
When you landed on every character and boss, do they all stagger?
Yeah, absolutely. Every hit, except projectile. I don't know what it does to projectiles, but every hit it'll stagger them if you manage to parry properly.
Like the parry being a release is so weird in my head. Mm-hmm. Like, is it as awkward as it sounds?
It is awkward, but again, the fortunate thing is that if you do it wrong, you just guard the hit.
I guess.
Well, that's it. Like, once you explain that, like they have all three functions on the button, then I'm thinking about it like startup frames, active frames, recovery. Yeah, it's like three functions with three sets.
It's worth bearing in mind that the getting out of guard doesn't interrupt you in any way, and you can just immediately cancel it into attacks.
Okay.
Like it's not like in Revengeance where Raiden will just go like
and hold the sword out.
You won't miss anything, you know. So it's kind of actually like pretty innocuous, but it does, especially in the tutorial where it's like now do the parry. You're like, this feels really weird to do with no like experience of how the game works. But and the mission structure is pretty fun, but the bosses and all the sewer levels are just the sewer levels are shit.
I didn't get to the sewer level, but I saw a lot of people saying like it's terrible.
Yeah. The little chunk of Manhattan's really enjoyable. Just little buildings with grinding rails all over the place. It's fun.
It kind of felt like a Tony Hawk.
Yeah, a little bit with the speed you're moving at.
Yeah.
Karai's skyscrapers at least has its own thing going on, even though it's not the most enjoyable. But the sewers are nothing. There's water that goes through, and if it's going fast enough, it pulls you along. But that's not particularly enjoyable. And you end up fighting a lot of enemies being pushed against invisible walls alongside them.
Oh, that sounds great.
And like the worst bit about it is the camera holds up fine and it doesn't impede your controls, so it's actually not an issue, but it just feels stupid.
I ran into a problem where when I was in single player, I know this is like a different set of problems, is that my AI turtles would sometimes run so far ahead and kill foot soldiers before I got there, and sometimes not. Like, the fact that you don't have control over them, why couldn't it be where, like, you command them?
You can.
You can command them to specific things, like hold back, don't attack.
You can get them to stay near you or go all out.
That's it.
Yeah, and there's another one that makes them go all out but not use their skills. So they'll save them, so you can save them for a boss fight or something like that. Okay, then I must have missed that part. But that's in the command, it's in an overly complicated command menu that's like mostly for multiplayer, so you can tell people non-verbally where to go, what to do.
Remember when the IGN footage came out, and I think at that time I was the only one that had seen it, I was like, the AI is so messy and so busy with so many things, like 2 different radial wheels coming up. And again, this is weird.
The UI, yeah, it is. It is really messy.
Because if it's for a kid-friendly pick-up-and-play sort of thing, that's like the exact opposite of what you'd want. You want something a little... Like, even me that, like, you know, like, played Revengeance multiple times, I was just like, this makes it look more complicated than it is.
Nah, dude, the UI is shit. It's really poor.
Platinum's never been bad at UI. I always find the UI design quite elegant.
Not at all.
They're basic with it. They don't really try to do too much most of the time. They keep it functional.
Hey, does it work? Great.
Yeah.
Done.
This UI is way messy. Like, Matt's totally right on that. I completely agree.
So one thing we were concerned about early on too was a number of environment sets. Like, how many were there?
I think like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Which there's 9 missions, so it's not so bad. Sewer is the one that you see the most, unfortunately, and it's kind of shitty.
You're telling me that the worst level is the one you see the most often?
Which is 3 times.
Great.
So
awesome.
It's not a lot, but you do see it the most often.
Like the
to be fair,
that's probably why it's so shitty, is because you see it the most.
To be fair, when I think of Transformers, all I'm thinking of is the city. the Cybertronian looking architecture, and then
the space portal, and like that's it.
City.
Yeah, it's a similar level of like stages.
Like for Transformers, it makes. Well, it's weird because, like, in Korra, there's a progression of,
in Korra, there's a handful of different areas.
Similar-looking environments, but they are different.
Yeah, and they're actually different. The ice place in the town and the spirit world are all completely different from each other.
But, like, for example, when you think of an old TMNT beat-em-up, you constantly move from like city street to sewers to like on the sea to like
you go in a building,
yard, go in a building,
exactly.
Or like Turtles in Time, where you go into like different time periods.
Casey's Hideout, etc.
Yeah, sure. And then, like,
this game's kind of the same thing, but it does. I don't know,
because you're in New York. It is called Mutants in Manhattan.
Yeah,
for fuck's sake.
Because when I look at the lineup of levels in like one of the older Konami ones, like it's a pretty similar kind of thing. Like in the Konami ones, you do a lot of buildings, and they're all just kind of buildings, but. I don't know. There's something about this, like, I don't know. They just come off as bland. It might just have to do with the game not feeling amazing on the whole. And it feels good moment to moment, but then the bosses and some of the side missions just put a brick wall in your way, and it's not
the other thing
enjoyable.
In general is that, like, I said earlier that the character models and everything has this nice, like, really good look to them and has this good amount of platinum style. When it comes to the environments, like, everything doesn't look amazing. But it still runs.
The art's solid, yeah.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, Revengeance looks better.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
but
Revengeance
like, the fact that it still runs at 30, even on PC, is, like, I'll lament that, like, it has to, support the co-op and stuff like that. But if you're playing in single player, I don't get it why for that at least mode.
I don't know. Honestly, like it might be that it was just like some weird unlocked mid 40s that they had it at, so they said just fuck
like,
it. But
on PC, there's no excuse.
No, exactly.
You have to force that shit
on
to
PC.
happen.
Like they should have done it. But even like if I'm not mistaken, the Revengeance port still has like notable flaws.
It does, but like those notable flaws are livable. It's no Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
Right, it's
I was reading a guy recently who said he was like falling through world and the Ray stuff wasn't going right in the fucking first level.
That is rare. I have not seen any of that, and I like looked up like the
I played a good bit of it on at when I worked at Eidos. I played it on the PC there and it played great.
The general gist is like there's a few weird resolution things, and it doesn't go up to like 144 hertz.
And how was Transformers on PC? I'm not.
For me, it was fine.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't think I played
fine.
it there. I think I played it on PS4.
Okay, because I didn't touch it.
I went through PC, no problem. The only goofy Revengeance gif I've seen is Jetstream Sam doing a weird hokey walk with his leg sticking out.
Oh, yeah?
But I haven't seen any, like, falling out of world.
I haven't seen a video. I read that on a forum.
When I think of Platinum, the last thing I think of is shit like falling through the world. That's Chasing Dead territory.
Yeah, that's strange.
Well, and Wonderful 101 territory.
So I looked at like 15 seconds
that fucking
of your
game
Chasing
at
Dead
launch had some bugs.
and then closed that window, and I'm never going to watch that shit again.
I
was terrified.
Yeah. Uh-oh, wait, hold on a second. Hold on. I think I feel a power outage coming on.
I was about to say.
We better stick an ad in there to cover the dead time. Okay, good. We covered it.
It's been 14 years, and we're resuming the podcast.
I'm dead again?
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It's definitely their worst game. Like, I'm not even going to contest anyone on that, because it's not.
And it's easy to say that, because, like, the studio is, like, what, 9 years old or something?
Yeah, their low bar is, like, Mad World, Anarchy Reigns, and Korra.
And I love those. I love two of those three.
I love those two games a lot.
But I think the asterisk we put on, or get Platinum to develop a thing
is with time and money. Yeah,
with time and money.
Of course,
Like, you have to.
Like, you wouldn't get From Software to make a thing in 6 months, because it could just be a crapshoot like this.
Almost everyone should always have time and money.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
But now we have to specify that.
I saw people online cheering that, like, now Platinum fans can't just say make Platinum make it. And it's like, no, you're wrong.
That's not going to stop.
Yeah,
no way.
Like, I'll gladly say that, like, after the third Activision game, like, there's blame to put on both sides kind of here in terms of, like, yeah, Platinum, you're not good enough to do this amount with this amount of time and budget.
I was gonna say, like, even besides that, like, the design's bad in some
aspects. The design is bad. I really feel, I said this before, this feels like a sequel to the first TMNT game that Platinum did not develop, where they're adding features. Yeah. Like, I really feel like just maybe a 2-player split screen option and like just a single player thing, and with really great Platinum combat, and then move into more of a big co-op thing. It seemed like the more natural choice, but who knows?
Yeah, honestly, I really just wish they could patch it to remove the other 3 turtles on screen, to normalize the boss health bars and adjust all the missions to not be multiplayer centric.
If this helps allay or deepen your fear, as far as I can recall, TMNT Out of the Shadows is on the consoles and especially on PC. No, sorry, on the PC and 360. But the worst version was the PS3 version. I believe they never, ever got patched.
Nice.
Because that game had way more bugs.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that, yeah.
I wasn't able to complete some missions on the 360. And I know for a fact that the PS3 port, unfortunately, is even worse. Mm-hmm. So Activision does not pay for that stuff.
Any company, universally, with time and money, like, you get your good product.
That is not true.
Silver dollar with time and money.
That is not
you
true.
get a good product.
Majesco's never made a good game in their goddamn life.
No, they've never made a good game, but they
time and money.
They published some good ones, yeah.
They published Double Dragon Neon, but they
Square Enix never made a good game.
Never.
Oh, man.
Xenogears never happened.
Square Enix didn't make that.
Brash with time and money.
Sure.
Brash.
Final Fantasy X, though.
Did you ever watch that Unseen 64 video by Liam Robertson about Brash?
I remember you telling me about it.
Dude, you would love that video. Because it's just dumb rock star Hollywood executives.
I was there on the ground floor, man.
You tested some shit.
I got to
Brash
read
had
the
good
emails.
games, though.
No, it didn't.
I got to read the emails. It was great.
Fair enough.